Hi, I'm Shlomik from Job Test Prep. If you've been invited to take an SHL test as part of your hiring process, this video is going to give you everything you need to know. An overview of the tests you might take, including the new and popular interactive version, solved sample questions, and tips for passing. Let's go. SHL is one of the world's biggest test providers. That basically means that they conduct pre-employment assessments on behalf of various employers. That's why there isn't a single SHL test, and the test or tests you will take depends on both the employer and the position. In addition, after years of using traditional multiple choice tests, SHL has recently introduced innovative interactive tests intended to replace them. To make sure you're really prepared for your SHL test, you need to know if you're taking the interactive version or the multiple choice one. We'll get to that in more detail in the tips section near the end of this video. The most common SHL tests are those assessing your cognitive abilities and thinking skills, namely aptitude tests. Although there are over a dozen different SHL aptitude tests, the majority of candidates will take one of 5 most common ones, which we will now walk you through. The SHL General Ability Test, also sometimes referred to as Verified G+, combines questions from 3 specific SHL tests: Numerical, Inductive, and Deductive. The test contains 24 to 30 questions, depending on the version, and takes 36 minutes to complete. The General Ability Test is often followed by SHL's Personality Profiling Test, the OPQ32, which I will briefly cover in the end of this video, so make sure you're familiar with it as well. Okay, I'm now going to get into the numerical, inductive, and deductive SHL tests in more detail and show a sample question from each, so don't go anywhere. The SHL numerical test is probably the one candidates are most concerned about, and for a good reason. This test deals primarily with understanding and interpreting numerical data in graphs and tables, although you should be ready to make some calculations as well. You will need to solve between 10 and 16 questions in around 20 minutes. Note that while question content is going to be pretty similar in both versions, the structure is pretty different. The interactive version contains 3 question types: graphs and tables, ranking, and calculations. The multiple choice version, on the other hand, contains mostly graphs and tables and some word problems. Here's a full sample question adapted from the interactive version. You can pause the video and try to solve it. The full solution is in the description below. The SHL Inductive Reasoning Test is all about patterns. The test uses various question formats to assess how well you recognize and apply patterns and rules depicted in abstract shapes. The test contains 15 to 18 questions and takes between 18 and 24 minutes. Question types in the interactive version are line sequence, image sequence, and shape transformation. On the multiple choice version, you will mostly see traditional pattern recognition questions, which may ask you to recognize the missing shape in a sequence, a matrix, or to find the odd one out. Again, here's one sample question for you to try. Take a moment to solve it and look for the solution in the description below. On the SHL Deductive Reasoning Test, you're mainly assessed on your ability to draw logical conclusions, plan, and organize. Depending on the version, you will need to solve 12 to 18 questions in around 20 minutes. Questions in this test come in 2 main types: scheduling, in which you will need to set schedules based on various constraints and limitations, and ranking, which will require you to rank employee performance based on implicit cues. And again, here's your chance to test yourself with a sample question. This time a scheduling one. Go ahead and give it a go, and don't forget to check out the description to see if you were right. The last of the 5 most popular SHL aptitude tests is the Verbal Reasoning Test. Unlike all previous tests, this one has no interactive version. The single multiple choice version contains 30 questions to be solved in 19 minutes. All 30 test questions follow the exact same format, often referred to as TFC, which stands for True, False, Cannot Say. In this type of question, you will be presented with a short paragraph and related statement. You will need to decide whether the statement is true, that is, logically follows the paragraph, false, namely contradicted by the paragraph, or that its level of truth cannot be determined. And, as ever, here's a sample question for you to try. Pause the video, solve it, and let's move on. Alright, we're now done with the overview of SHL's aptitude tests, so let's talk a bit about how to best prepare yourself for them. Here are 3 tips to follow once you get invited to take an SHL test. Tip number 1. SHL's official practice tests are not enough. On their website, SHL offers a selection of practice tests you can take for free before taking the actual assessment. While these sample tests will give you a pretty good understanding of how the test looks like, they're not really suitable for practice. Why? Well, firstly, these tests do not contain answers or explanations, so you can't really learn from them. Secondly, they do not represent the actual test's time constraints and difficulty and tend to be much simpler than the real thing. In fact, SHL specifically state on their site that the difficulty level of practice tests may not exactly reflect the level of difficulty of the test you will be asked to complete. So, if you are interested in complete, in-depth and accurate practice for the SHL Aptitude Tests, check out our dedicated page. It also includes a free sample test with solutions and an additional sample question for all the tests covered in this video, for both the multiple choice and interactive versions. Tip number 2. Know which test version you take. Speaking of versions, I cannot stress enough how essential it is to know exactly which SHL test and which version you're about to take, so you can prepare yourself for the real testing experience. Nearly all SHL online preparation resources offer coverage for the multiple choice version only, which, although still popular, is gradually being replaced by the interactive one. So take the extra time to check out which test and version you have, and then pick the suitable preparation plan. If you're not sure of the exact version, I welcome you to check out our SHL Test Finding Guide, which will walk you through the clues in your test invitation to make sure you're preparing for the right test. Tip number 3. Don't forget the personality profiling test. Not always, but very often, SHL aptitude tests will be followed by a personality questionnaire, called OPQ32. If you indeed need to take this test, you will see the term personality questionnaire or some other variation of it in your SHL test invitation. This test assesses your personality traits and workplace behavior to determine if you're a good fit for the job. Unfortunately, many candidates tend to overlook this test, as there is a common misconception that you cannot prepare yourself for it and should just be yourself. However, if you want your character to shine through the 100 or so questions of this test, make sure you understand it and prepare for it. You're welcome to follow the link in the description below for more information. Okay, it's time to wrap things up. If you want to learn more about any of the tests I mentioned, including free sample tests and expert tips, or if you have a different SHL test coming up which this video did not cover, check out our SHL test info page to get all the information and prep you need. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed and learned. Now it's your turn to practice. Good luck.